Have you ever wondered why happiness feels so hard to find? Why does it seem like no matter what we achieve, there's always something missing? We tell ourselves, I'll be happy when I get that job, when I buy that house, when I find the perfect partner. But when we finally get those things, does happiness last? Or does the cycle start all over again? Imagine a child playing with their favorite toy. In that moment, they are completely happy. But the moment they see another toy, they suddenly feel like they need it to be happy. Isn't that what we all do? We think we need more, but the more we chase, the more happiness slips away. What if happiness isn't about getting more, but about realizing we already have enough? Welcome to Wisdom Woven, the place where ancient wisdom meets modern life. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% subscribe. So please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. It helps us grow, and your support means the world. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. Buddhism teaches a powerful truth. Happiness is not something we find outside. It's something we cultivate within. The Buddha himself was born a prince, surrounded by luxury, yet he still felt unsatisfied. He left everything behind to seek true happiness, and what he discovered changed the world forever. So, what did he learn? That happiness is simple. It doesn't come from wealth, success, or even relationships. It comes from understanding the mind. The reason we suffer isn't because we don't have enough, but because we believe we don't. The mind constantly craves, clings, and resists, keeping us trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. Think about it. How many times have you thought, if only things were different, I'd be happy? But have you ever noticed that even when things do change, the mind quickly finds something new to want? This endless craving is what Buddhism calls dukkha, or suffering. The good news? There is a way out. The key lies in awareness. When we pause and observe our thoughts instead of getting lost in them, we begin to see how fleeting desires really are. The moment we stop chasing happiness, we allow it to arise naturally. It's already here. We just need to stop covering it up with endless wants. This doesn't mean we should never have goals or ambitions. It simply means we don't need to attach our happiness to them. When we learn to be content with the present, life becomes lighter. Happiness is no longer a distant dream, but something we experience right now. So, as we begin this journey, ask yourself, what if happiness isn't about adding more to your life, but about removing what's unnecessary? What if the secret to happiness is simpler than you think? Stay with us as we dive deeper into this profound wisdom. The answers might just surprise you. The illusion of desire. Why chasing more won't make you happy. Have you ever felt like no matter how much you have, it's never enough? That feeling of always wanting more can be overwhelming, right? You work hard, you save up, you get the things you thought would bring happiness, but after a while, the excitement fades, and you're left wanting something else. It's like trying to fill a cup with water, but the cup has a hole at the bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it's never full. The truth is, desire is a tricky thing. We live in a world that constantly tells us we need more. More things, more success, more experiences. We are taught to believe that happiness lies just around the corner, in the next thing we acquire, the next milestone we reach. But what if I told you that the more we chase these desires, the more they slip through our fingers, like sand in the wind? Buddhism teaches us that desire, in itself, is not bad. It's natural to want things, to have goals, and to dream. But the problem arises when we let these desires define us. When we start to believe that happiness is tied to the next possession or achievement, we fall into a trap. We begin to think, if I just had this, I'd be happy. But what happens when you get what you want? Often, you feel a temporary rush of happiness, but soon, the feeling fades, and you're back to searching for the next thing. Think about a time when you bought something you really wanted. Maybe it was a new phone, a car, or even a fancy meal. At first, you were excited. The happiness was almost overwhelming. But after a while, that excitement disappeared. You started noticing things about the item you didn't like. The new phone got a scratch, the car lost its shine, and the meal was forgotten. Suddenly, you're thinking, I need something else to feel good again. This is the cycle of desire. It's endless. The Buddha recognized this pattern. He understood that our desires create suffering because they are impossible to satisfy permanently. When we chase after desires, we are essentially running after a mirage. The more we try to reach it, the further it moves. And the more we focus on what we don't have, the less we appreciate what we already do. But there's good news. The cycle can be broken. The key is to realize that happiness doesn't come from constantly adding to your life. In fact, it might be the opposite. Instead of focusing on the next thing you want, try shifting your focus to what you already have. This doesn't mean giving up on your goals or dreams. It means finding contentment in the present moment. Let's take a step back. Imagine you're sitting in a peaceful park. There's no rush, no agenda. You're simply present. You look around and notice the trees swaying gently in the breeze, the birds chirping, the sun warming your skin. In this moment, you feel at ease. You're not thinking about what you need next. You're just being. And in that moment, there is happiness. It doesn't come from anything external. It comes from within. Buddhism teaches that happiness isn't a destination. It's a way of being. When we stop thinking that happiness is something to be chased or obtained, we start to experience it. It's right here, right now. It's in the simplicity of life, in appreciating the small things, in being fully present. Now, this doesn't mean you should stop working hard or stop pursuing your dreams. But instead of tying your happiness to achievements or possessions, try to find happiness in the pursuit itself. Think about it. If you enjoy the process of learning, growing, and evolving, then the desire becomes something that enhances your life, not something that controls it. When you're not attached to the outcome, the journey itself becomes fulfilling. In Buddhism, this is called non-attachment. It's not about giving up everything you desire. It's about not letting your desires control you. Imagine living in a way where you can want things, but you don't desperately need them to be happy. What would that feel like? It would feel like freedom. You see, the more we hold on tightly to things we think we need, the more we suffer. We believe that once we get that promotion, that new car, or that new relationship, everything will fall into place. But the truth is, these things don't guarantee happiness. They may bring temporary pleasure, but happiness that depends on external circumstances is always fleeting. Instead of chasing after what you don't have, practice appreciation for what you do have. Appreciate your health, your family, your friends, the roof over your head, and even the simple moments that often go unnoticed. True contentment comes from realizing that the present moment, in all its simplicity, is already enough. Think about it. You might not have everything you want, but you have everything you need to feel at peace. When we stop measuring our worth based on external achievements or possessions, we start to see the beauty in just being alive. We stop comparing ourselves to others and instead focus on our own path. This isn't to say you shouldn't have goals or ambitions, but let those ambitions come from a place of growth and personal development, not from a place of lack. Let your goals come from a place of curiosity and joy, not from a belief that you won't be happy without them. It's easy to get caught up in the illusion that the next thing will make us happy, but true happiness comes when we stop looking outside ourselves for fulfillment and start looking within. The Buddha didn't find peace in wealth or success. He found peace in letting go of the constant need for more and embracing the simplicity of life as it is. If you can let go of the belief that happiness is something to be obtained, you'll start to experience it more often. And when you stop chasing desires that never satisfy, you'll start to feel lighter, freer, and more connected to what really matters. So, the next time you feel that urge to chase something outside yourself, ask yourself, will this truly bring me happiness, or am I just filling a void that can never be filled? And then, pause, take a deep breath, and remember that happiness is already here, in this moment, with what you already have. It's simpler than you think. In Buddhism, it's said that desire is like a fire. It keeps burning and demanding more. But if we stop feeding it, the fire eventually burns out. The same is true with our desires. If we stop feeding them with our attention, we free ourselves from their control. And in that freedom, happiness naturally arises. So, remember, happiness isn't about acquiring more. It's about learning to be content with what is. It's about letting go of the constant chase and learning to enjoy the present moment, just as it is. When you do, you'll realize that the true source of happiness has been inside you all along. And that, my friend, is the real treasure. The power of the present moment, finding joy in now. Do you ever find yourself thinking about the past or worrying about the future? How many times have you been somewhere, but your mind was somewhere else? Maybe you were with friends, but your thoughts were on work. Or you were enjoying a beautiful sunset, but your mind was racing about something you forgot to do. The truth is, we spend so much of our lives caught in thoughts about the past or the future that we forget to truly live in the moment. But what if the present moment was the only place where true happiness could be found? What if everything we need to feel joy, peace, and contentment is already available to us right now? In Buddhism, this is called mindfulness. It means paying attention to the present moment with full awareness, without judgment. It's about being fully awake to life as it unfolds, rather than being lost in our thoughts. When we are mindful, we notice the simple beauty of the world around us. The warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of a bird singing, the taste of our food, and the feeling of our breath moving in and out. Imagine for a moment that you are sitting quietly, with nothing on your mind. There is no past, no future, just this very moment. You can feel your body, hear the sounds around you, and experience the stillness within. In this moment, there is no rush, no pressure. There is only peace. This is the power of the present moment. But here's the thing. We don't have to be sitting still to experience this peace. The present moment is always available, no matter what we're doing. Whether we're working, talking to someone, or walking down the street, we can choose to bring our full attention to the present. And when we do, we begin to experience life more deeply, more fully, and more joyfully. But why is this so hard for us? Why do we struggle to stay present, to be mindful? The answer is simple. Our minds are busy. We are constantly thinking about what we should have done, what we might do later, what others think of us. Our minds are full of noise. But just like when you try to hear a quiet sound in a noisy room, it's difficult to hear the peace of the present moment when our minds are cluttered with distractions. The Buddha taught that our minds are like a pond. When the water is calm, the reflection is clear. But when the water is disturbed, the reflection becomes blurry. Similarly, when our minds are filled with worries and distractions, it's hard to see life clearly. The way to calm the mind is to practice mindfulness, to quiet the noise and focus on what's right in front of us. Think about it. How often do we rush through our days, just trying to get things done? We think, I'll be happy when I finish this task, or I'll relax once I get to the weekend. But then, when the task is finished, there's always another one waiting. The weekend comes, but we're already thinking about the week ahead. We are constantly chasing a future happiness that never quite arrives. The truth is, happiness doesn't come from finishing tasks or reaching goals. It comes from fully experiencing life in each moment. When we stop waiting for the future, we realize that happiness is already here, hidden in the present. The joy we seek is in the simple act of being. Take a moment right now to pause. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Notice the sensations in your body. Are you tense or relaxed? What sounds can you hear? What feelings arise in your mind? Simply notice, without judgment. Just be with the experience. This is the practice of mindfulness, being fully present in the now, without trying to change anything. This might sound easy, but for many of us, it's not. We live in a world filled with distractions. Our phones, our emails, our to-do lists, they pull us away from the present moment. We're always looking for the next thing, the next step, the next opportunity. But in doing so, we miss out on the richness of life that's happening right in front of us. So, what can we do? How can we practice mindfulness in our busy lives? The first step is to slow down. Take a deep breath. When you're walking, pay attention to each step. Feel the ground beneath your feet. When you're eating, notice the taste and texture of your food. When you're talking to someone, truly listen to them, without thinking about what you're going to say next. The more we practice being present, the easier it becomes. And the more we become aware of the beauty in the present, the more joy we experience. It's like a treasure that's been there all along, just waiting for us to discover it. But there's more. The Buddha also taught that our minds are constantly in a state of attachment. We hold on to thoughts, emotions, and experiences, thinking they will bring us happiness. We cling to the past, to memories, to old wounds. We worry about the future, about what might happen, about what we might lose. But this attachment only creates suffering. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to let go. We learn to see that thoughts, feelings, and experiences are not permanent. They come and go, like clouds in the sky. When we stop holding on to them, we allow ourselves to be free. Free from worry, free from regret, and free from the need to control every moment. This doesn't mean we stop caring about the future or the past. It simply means we don't let them control us. We learn to live in harmony with the present, understanding that it is all we truly have. The future will come, and the past is already gone. The only moment that truly exists is now. Imagine how different your life could be if you learned to live in the present moment. Instead of rushing through life, you would savor it. You would find joy in the simplest things, in a conversation, in a walk, in a cup of tea. Happiness wouldn't be something you have to chase. It would be something you experience, right here, right now. So, how do we cultivate this kind of mindfulness? It begins with awareness. Take a moment to notice your thoughts. When your mind starts to wander, gently bring it back to the present. Don't judge yourself for getting distracted. Just notice and return to the moment. Over time, this practice will become second nature. Remember, happiness is not something we find in the future. It's not something we achieve or accomplish. It's something we experience in the present moment, with full awareness and appreciation. The more we practice mindfulness, the more we realize that the present is all we ever need. So, the next time you find yourself rushing through life, ask yourself, am I truly present right now? And if not, take a moment to come back to the present. Slow down, breathe, notice, and feel the peace and joy that arise when you are fully awake to the beauty of now. Letting go. How non-attachment leads to true peace. Have you ever held on to something so tightly, only to find that it caused you more pain than peace? It could be a relationship, a dream, an idea, or even an object. The more you clutch it, the more it slips through your fingers, like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you hold, the less control you really have. Letting go may feel scary, but what if it's the key to finding true peace? This is where the wisdom of non-attachment comes in. We often believe that the things we own, the people we love, or the future we imagine are the sources of our happiness. We attach ourselves to them, thinking they will fulfill us. But attachment has a hidden danger. It creates fear. Fear of losing what we have, fear of not getting what we want. And this fear keeps us in a constant state of stress and anxiety. Imagine a tree in the wind. The more rigid the tree, the more likely it is to break when the storm comes. But a tree that bends with the wind, it remains standing, unaffected. This is the power of letting go. When we let go, we stop resisting life and allow things to flow as they are. We stop trying to control every moment and accept what comes without fear or worry. But what does it really mean to let go? It doesn't mean you stop caring or become indifferent. In fact, it's the opposite. Letting go means embracing life fully, without the need to possess or control it. It's about freeing your heart from the need for attachment to anything, whether it's material wealth, the approval of others, or even the idea of success. When you release this need, you find a kind of freedom that cannot be disturbed by external events. Letting go is also about accepting impermanence. Every moment is changing, and everything you know is in constant flux. Just like the seasons shift, so do your experiences. When you resist change, you resist life itself. But when you let go of the need to hold on to the past or cling to a future that hasn't arrived, you open yourself to the beauty of the present moment. You begin to understand that nothing lasts forever, and that's okay. It's this awareness that allows us to appreciate what we have while we have it, without fear of losing it. Take a deep breath and think about it. How much of your life is spent in anxiety about the future or regret over the past? How many times have you been so attached to an idea or outcome that you missed the beauty of the journey? True peace comes not when you get everything you want, but when you stop clinging to everything. When you embrace life as it is, imperfect, fleeting, and ever-changing. Now, this isn't to say you should stop setting goals or working towards your dreams. No, it's about finding balance. When you are not attached to the outcome, You can move through life with more ease. You still care, you still strive, but the results no longer define your happiness. The moment you detach from the result and focus on the process itself, you find a sense of freedom. You can work with joy, knowing that you are not tied to how things should be. Think of the way a river flows. It doesn't worry about whether it will reach the ocean. It simply flows, knowing that whatever happens, it will find its way. When you let go, you stop struggling against the current of life. You stop swimming upstream. Instead, you allow yourself to flow naturally with whatever comes your way, trusting that it's all part of the journey. One of the most profound teachings in Buddhism is that of the middle way, a path of balance between extremes. Non-attachment is not about becoming detached from life or emotions. It's about not letting anything control you. You allow yourself to experience everything, joy, sadness, success, failure, without letting any of it define who you are. When you let go of attachment, you discover an inner peace that isn't dependent on anything outside of you. You realize that your true happiness comes from within, not from the things you have or the outcomes you seek. This can be a difficult concept to grasp, especially in a world that constantly tells us to acquire more, to succeed, to prove ourselves. But when you start to let go, you begin to see life from a different perspective. You realize that what you truly need, love, peace, and contentment, is already inside of you, waiting to be uncovered. All that's required is to stop looking outside and start looking within. It's also important to remember that letting go isn't a one-time decision. It's a practice. Each day, you'll find new things to release: old grudges, limiting beliefs, attachments to your identity, your past mistakes, your fears about the future. Letting go is an ongoing journey, one that requires patience and mindfulness. But with each step, you move closer to true freedom. In the Zen tradition, there is a beautiful story of a monk who, after years of rigorous training, was still struggling with attachment. One day, his master told him to let go of everything he held dear: his possessions, his relationships, his thoughts. The monk was confused and hesitant, but the master simply said, "Let go, and you will find your true self." It was only when the monk truly released his attachments that he experienced a profound sense of peace, one that had eluded him for so long. This story reminds us that true peace comes when we stop fighting against life and start accepting it as it is. It's not about running away from our responsibilities or abandoning our desires. It's about not being controlled by them. It's about recognizing that we are not our possessions, our achievements, or even our feelings. We are something deeper, something more lasting. So, the next time you feel yourself grasping for something or someone, ask yourself, what would happen if I let go? What would happen if I stopped holding on so tightly to the outcome and trusted the process? What if I allowed myself to simply be, without the need to prove anything or achieve anything? You might find that letting go doesn't mean losing anything at all. In fact, you might gain everything you've been searching for. True peace, true freedom, and true happiness are found in the simple act of letting go. The middle way, balancing life for lasting happiness. Life is full of extremes. We're told to push harder, to get more, to never stop. And yet, in the same breath, we're told to relax, to let go, to take things easy. How can we make sense of these contradictions? How can we find happiness when we're pulled in so many directions, constantly torn between the need for success and the desire for peace? This is where the wisdom of the middle way comes in. It's not about choosing one extreme over another. It's about finding a balanced path, a way of living that doesn't fall into the trap of excess or deprivation. The middle way is the art of living in harmony with both our desires and our need for contentment. Imagine you're walking on a tightrope. On one side, there's the pull of overindulgence, the desire for pleasure, comfort, and excess. On the other, there's the pull of self-denial, the need to resist all temptations, to constantly sacrifice your own happiness for the sake of discipline. If you lean too far in either direction, you'll fall. But if you can find the center, the balance point, you can walk the tightrope with ease. That's the middle way. In Buddhism, the middle way was taught by the Buddha himself, who experienced both extremes in his own life. As a young prince, he had everything: luxury, wealth, and pleasure. but he found that none of it brought him lasting happiness. So, he decided to renounce his privileged life and seek a path of severe asceticism, living on the bare minimum, denying himself everything that might bring comfort. But even this didn't bring peace. He realized that neither extreme, luxury nor deprivation, was the answer. The key was moderation. This is a powerful insight. We often think that in order to be happy, we need to push ourselves to extremes. We work long hours, believing that more effort will lead to more success and, eventually, happiness. Or we deny ourselves simple pleasures, thinking that happiness lies in sacrifice and renunciation. But what if true happiness isn't found in either of these extremes? What if it's found in balance? Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Are you working too hard, chasing success, and hoping that one day, when you achieve it all, you'll finally be happy? Or are you leaning too far in the other direction, avoiding challenges and pleasures, hoping to find peace by doing less? Both approaches are flawed because they both deny the truth of the middle way. The Buddha teaches us that happiness comes from a balanced life, one where we are neither clinging to pleasure nor rejecting it. It's about understanding that both pleasure and pain are part of life, but we don't need to be ruled by them. We can enjoy the simple pleasures of life, like a beautiful sunset, a warm meal, or the company of friends, without becoming attached to them. And we can face the challenges of life, like loss, disappointment, or hardship, without becoming overwhelmed by them. The middle way is about being present with whatever life offers, without getting swept away by the highs and lows. It's about finding peace in the moment, no matter what's happening around us. Whether you're facing joy or sorrow, gain or loss, the middle way teaches you to stay grounded, to keep your balance. But how do we apply the middle way in our own lives? It starts with mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully aware of the present moment, without judgment or attachment. When we are mindful, we can see things clearly, without the cloud of desire or aversion. We can enjoy what we have without needing more, and we can face challenges without becoming overwhelmed. In practical terms, this might mean taking a step back and asking yourself, am I leaning too far toward one extreme? Am I working too hard? Or am I avoiding work altogether? It's about finding moderation in everything you do, from work to play, from eating to resting. When we live in balance, we create space for happiness to arise naturally, without the need to force it or chase it. One of the most powerful practices for living the middle way is detachment, not in the sense of rejecting life or withdrawing from the world, but in the sense of not becoming attached to the outcomes of our actions. We do what we can, but we don't cling to the results. Whether we succeed or fail, we can still be at peace because we are not defined by those outcomes. It's easy to get caught up in the desire for more money, more success, more recognition. But the truth is, the more we chase these things, the more we feel empty. The middle way invites us to let go of this craving and to focus on what truly matters. Living with purpose, cultivating peace, and being present with the people and experiences that bring us joy. Living the middle way also means recognizing that happiness isn't something we need to search for. It's not out there somewhere, waiting to be found. Happiness is a state of mind that we can cultivate right here, right now. It's about contentment, being satisfied with what we have, even if it's not perfect. The middle way teaches us that we don't need to be rich, successful, or perfect to be happy. All we need is the ability to find peace in the present moment. As you walk the middle way, you'll notice that your life becomes more balanced. You'll experience both joy and sorrow, but you won't be overwhelmed by either. You'll find that the highs and lows of life are just passing moments, and you can enjoy them without being controlled by them. You'll learn to appreciate life for what it is, not for what you want it to be. So, ask yourself, what would it look like to live a balanced life? What would it feel like to stop chasing after things and to simply appreciate what you already have? The middle way isn't about perfection. It's about finding peace in the imperfect. It's about embracing life as it comes, without trying to control it. And in that acceptance, you'll discover a happiness that is deeper and more lasting than anything you could ever achieve by chasing after extremes. In the end, the middle way is about understanding that life is not about what we have or don't have. It's not about how much we achieve or how little we do. It's about finding peace in the balance between what is and what could be. The key to happiness is not in the extremes, but in the quiet, steady middle ground where we can be at peace with ourselves and the world around us. And so, as you continue on your journey, remember, happiness isn't something to be found. It's something to be cultivated. And the path to true happiness is the path of the middle way. Mindfulness and meditation, the Buddhist path to inner peace. Let's take a moment to pause and think about this. How often do we truly pay attention to the present moment? How often do we rush through life, consumed by distractions, worries, and the noise around us? It seems like we're always running somewhere, towards a goal, a dream, a future. But in doing so, we miss the beauty of the here and now. Have you ever thought about how much of life you might be missing out on simply because you're not fully present? This is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in whatever you are doing, without getting lost in the past or future. It's about observing life with clear awareness, without judgment, without any rush. Mindfulness is not just a practice, it's a way of living. It's a shift in how we engage with the world and our own minds. In the Buddhist tradition, mindfulness is one of the cornerstones of the path to enlightenment. It's considered a powerful tool for awakening, a way to connect deeply with our true selves and with the world around us. When you practice mindfulness, you become aware of your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without letting them control you. You observe them from a place of calm, from a place of peace. Think about your thoughts for a moment. They come and go, don't they? One minute you're thinking about the past, the next you're worrying about the future. This constant chatter of the mind can be overwhelming. But here's the secret. When you bring your attention to the present moment, the mind quiets. It's like the clouds parting to reveal a clear sky. The more you practice mindfulness, the more you create space between your thoughts and your sense of self. You no longer have to react to every thought that arises. You begin to notice that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness observing them. But how can you bring mindfulness into your everyday life? It's not just about sitting in meditation for an hour. It's about bringing that mindful awareness into everything you do. When you're eating, taste the food. When you're walking, feel the ground beneath your feet. When you're talking to someone, really listen. Often, we're so caught up in our own heads that we miss the simple pleasures of life. But when we slow down and focus, we begin to experience life in a completely new way. This is where meditation comes in. Meditation is the tool that helps us cultivate mindfulness. In meditation, we sit quietly, close our eyes, and focus on our breath. We let go of all distractions and simply focus on the present moment. It's like going to the gym for your mind. Just as physical exercise strengthens your body, meditation strengthens your mind. The more you meditate, the more easily you can access that calm, focused awareness in your everyday life. Now, let's be honest for a moment. Meditation isn't always easy. In fact, it can be difficult at first. The mind is naturally restless. It wants to jump from thought, to constantly seek something. But that's okay. When you sit in meditation and your thoughts wander, just gently bring your focus back to your breath. The more you practice, the more you learn to let go of those distractions. Slowly, you'll find that the space between your thoughts grows wider and wider. And in that space, there is peace. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness and meditation is deeply intertwined with the concept of suffering. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment to desires, to past memories, to future expectations. But when you practice mindfulness, you learn to let go of attachment. You learn to see things as they truly are, without the filters of your personal desires or fears. You begin to understand that everything is temporary, everything is changing. And with this understanding, your grip on life loosens. You stop trying to control everything. You stop reacting to life as if it's a threat or a challenge. You start to flow with life, just as it is. This brings us to one of the most profound teachings in Buddhism, impermanence. Everything in life is in constant flux. The emotions you feel today will not last forever. The problems you face will not last forever. Even the moments of joy and peace will eventually pass. But that's not something to fear, that's something to embrace. When you realize that everything is impermanent, you stop clinging to things. You stop grasping for a fixed state of happiness or security. You learn to let go and simply experience what is. Mindfulness and meditation also allow you to cultivate compassion. As you become more aware of your own suffering and the nature of your thoughts, you also become more attuned to the suffering of others. You begin to see that we are all in this together. Every person you meet has their own struggles, their own desires, their own fears. And with this awareness comes a deep sense of compassion. You stop judging others because you understand that they are just like you, trying to find happiness in a world full of confusion and suffering. In Buddhism, compassion is not just a feeling, it's an active choice. It's about choosing to see the world through the eyes of another and acting with kindness, with understanding, and with love. It's about helping others, not because you expect something in return, but because you see their suffering as your own. When you practice mindfulness, you naturally become more compassionate. So, what does all this mean for your life? It means that peace and happiness are not somewhere out there, waiting to be found. They are within you, right now. They are in the way you think, in the way you breathe, in the way you experience the world. Mindfulness and meditation are tools to help you connect with that inner peace. They are not a means to an end, but a way of living. Imagine waking up every day with a sense of calm, not because your life is perfect, but because you have learned to embrace life just as it is. Imagine walking through your day without the constant noise of worries, without the constant craving for something more. Imagine being fully present in each moment, fully aware of your thoughts, your actions, and your feelings. This is what mindfulness and meditation offer. They offer you the gift of peace in a world that is constantly pulling you in different directions. They offer you the opportunity to experience life as it truly is, without the filters of your desires and fears. And they offer you the freedom to let go of the need to control everything, to just be right here, right now. So, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and let's begin the journey of mindfulness. There is no rush. Just be, in this moment, in this breath. And as you do, know that you are on the path to true peace and happiness. A path that starts with simply being present. Compassion and kindness, the key to genuine fulfillment. In a world that's always rushing, always striving, it's easy to forget the most simple yet powerful tool for happiness: compassion. We often think happiness comes from what we achieve or how much we possess. But what if true happiness actually arises from what we give, not what we get? What if the more we share love, understanding, and kindness, the more content we become? Have you ever felt a sense of warmth when you helped someone, even in a small way? Maybe you held the door open for a stranger or comforted a friend in need. In that moment, didn't you feel something deep inside? Something peaceful and fulfilling? That's the energy of compassion. It's not just about being nice. It's about creating a deep, meaningful connection with the world and people around you. And when we live with compassion, we don't just make others feel better, we also heal ourselves. Buddhism teaches that compassion is the heart of enlightenment. The Buddha himself lived a life of deep compassion, understanding that all beings, regardless of their situation, share the same essential desire for happiness and the same fear of suffering. He saw that true wisdom wasn't just about seeking peace for oneself, but about understanding the suffering of others and doing what we can to alleviate it. In the Metta-sutta, one of the most important teachings of Buddhism, the Buddha speaks about cultivating loving kindness, metta, towards all beings, without discrimination. He said, "May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering." This isn't just a beautiful wish, but a profound way of seeing the world. When we wish happiness for others, we begin to shift our focus away from our own troubles and desires. It takes the weight off our shoulders, and in doing so, we feel lighter, more peaceful. Imagine, for a moment, that everyone you encounter in your life is just like you, struggling with their own challenges, seeking happiness, and avoiding pain. Would you treat them differently? When we realize that everyone is fighting their own battles, we can't help but feel a deep sense of compassion for them. Whether it's the cashier at the store, the driver who cut you off in traffic, or even the person you disagree with most, they're all trying to make it through life just like you. Compassion is not just for others, it's for yourself too. In Buddhism, we talk about self-compassion, being gentle with ourselves, especially in times of struggle. So often, we are our own harshest critics. We expect perfection from ourselves, we judge our mistakes, and we hold ourselves to unrealistic standards. But when we practice self-compassion, we allow ourselves to be human. We embrace our imperfections and recognize that we deserve the same kindness we give to others. When you feel anger, frustration, or pain, try this. Instead of criticizing yourself for feeling that way, pause and ask, what would a compassionate person do? What would you say to a friend who is feeling the same way? You'd likely offer understanding, kindness, and a gentle reminder that they'll get through it. Why not offer that same support to yourself? The power of compassion extends beyond individual actions. It changes how we see the world. Imagine if everyone practiced kindness toward one another. How would your community change? How would your workplace, family, or friendships transform? The world might feel less competitive, less divided, and more peaceful. And it all starts with one person deciding to live with compassion. You. Sometimes, we hesitate to show compassion because we fear it might be too much. We might think, what if they don't appreciate it? Or what if I'm not enough? But the truth is, even a small act of kindness can have a ripple effect that we'll never fully understand. A smile, a listening ear, or a few kind words can make all the difference to someone who is struggling. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to solve their problems. Simply showing that you care is enough. The Buddha taught that compassion is not something that comes naturally for many of us. It's a skill that must be cultivated, just like mindfulness or meditation. It's easy to be kind when life is going smoothly, but it's much harder when we're stressed, upset, or overwhelmed. But that's precisely when we need compassion the most. In those moments, we must practice kindness, even if it feels difficult. Over time, it becomes easier. We build a habit of compassion, and with it comes a sense of inner peace and fulfillment. Compassion doesn't mean we should always put others' needs before our own. In fact, we need to care for ourselves first in order to have the energy to care for others. Balance is key, but when we extend our kindness to others, we start to realize that the happiness we seek isn't found in the things we own or the status we achieve. It's found in how we treat others and how we choose to respond to the suffering in the world. Think about this. When you're kind, you're not just benefiting the other person, you're benefiting yourself. Research shows that acts of kindness boost our own happiness, reduce stress, and improve our well-being. It's like a boomerang of goodness. The more we give, the more we receive. Here's a simple way to start practicing compassion. Begin with yourself. When you wake up in the morning, say to yourself, "May I be happy. May I be free from suffering." Then, when you interact with others, silently wish them the same. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. You'll be amazed at how quickly this simple practice can shift your perspective. Remember, the goal of compassion isn't perfection, it's progress. Every small act of kindness, every time you choose to show empathy instead of judgment, is a step toward a more fulfilling and peaceful life. In the end, it's not the grand gestures that matter most. It's the everyday acts of kindness, the ones we do without expecting anything in return, that create the deepest sense of fulfillment. And when you live with compassion, your life becomes a living example of love and peace for others to follow. So, what will you do today to bring more compassion into the world? It doesn't take much, just a smile, a kind word, a small act of care. The more we practice, the more it becomes a natural part of who we are. And as we begin to live with compassion, we unlock the true key to happiness, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. Suffering and its end, understanding the Four Noble Truths. What does it mean to suffer? Is it just about physical pain, or is there something deeper at play? We all face moments of pain, loss, and disappointment, but there's another kind of suffering, the one that begins in the mind. Have you ever felt like life is just not the way it's supposed to be? Or that things should be different than they are? This kind of suffering can feel endless, even though the cause is often not what we think. But what if there's a way to understand it, and even end it? This is where Buddhism comes in, offering us a way out of suffering. The Buddha, after seeing the world's pain, sought to understand why we suffer and how we can end it. And in his search, he discovered something revolutionary, the Four Noble Truths. These aren't just abstract ideas. They are a path that anyone can follow to find peace, no matter the circumstances. So, what are these Four Noble Truths? They are the very foundation of the Buddhist teachings. Let's explore them step by step, in simple terms, so you can truly understand how they apply to your life. The first noble truth, the truth of suffering, dukkha. The Buddha began by acknowledging something we all experience. Life is full of suffering. This doesn't mean that life is only about sadness or pain, but that suffering is a fundamental part of our human experience. Suffering comes in many forms: physical pain, emotional pain, dissatisfaction, frustration, and even the subtle feeling that something is missing, despite everything seeming fine on the surface. Have you ever felt that? Like no matter what you do, there's always something just out of reach? The Buddha called this dukkha, which is often translated as suffering, but can also mean unsatisfactoriness or imperfection. It's not just about the big hardships in life. It's about the smaller, everyday struggles too. Even the best moments in life, getting a promotion, finding love, achieving your dreams, are tainted by the fact that they don't last forever. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. And with change comes the inevitability of loss. We can try to hold on, but eventually, everything slips through our fingers. But here's the crucial insight. Suffering is not something to avoid or fear, but something to understand. Once we understand the nature of suffering, we can begin to see it more clearly. We can accept it without letting it control us. It's like being in a storm. You can't stop the rain, but you can find shelter. The first step in ending suffering is to recognize it. The second noble truth, the truth of the cause of suffering, samadaya. Now that we've recognized that suffering exists, the next question is, why do we suffer? What is the cause of this pain that seems to follow us everywhere we go? According to the Buddha, the root cause of suffering is not the external world, it's our attachment to it. We often think that the cause of suffering is the things we don't have, or the things we've lost. But that's just the surface. The deeper cause is our constant craving, our desire for things to be different, our refusal to accept life as it is. We crave pleasure, we fear pain, we resist change, and we cling to things we know will one day slip away. The Buddha called this craving tanha, which means thirst. Just like a person dying of thirst will drink anything to quench that desire, we too search for anything to satisfy our restless minds. This craving isn't just about material things, though. It's also about experiences, feelings, and even ideas. We want life to be a certain way, and when it's not, we feel discontent. We seek approval from others, a sense of security, control, or a promise of happiness in the future. But no matter how much we gain, we never feel fully satisfied because the desire never ends. It's like a fire that can never be quenched, always burning for more. The truth is that as long as we cling to desires and expectations, we will continue to suffer. The more we try to hold on to something, the more we resist life's natural flow, the more pain we cause ourselves. The key to ending suffering isn't getting everything we want. It's letting go of the need to constantly want more. It's realizing that contentment isn't found in external things, but in letting go of our attachments to them. The third noble truth, the truth of the end of suffering, nirodha. Now that we understand the cause of suffering, we might ask, can suffering really end? Is there a way to be free from this cycle of craving and dissatisfaction? The answer is yes. The Buddha taught that suffering can end, and it can end by eliminating the very cause of it, our attachment and craving. This doesn't mean we become numb to life or stop caring about anything. It means that we learn to let go of our tight grip on life and allow ourselves to experience it without clinging. Imagine holding a precious object in your hand. The more tightly you hold it, the more likely you are to drop it. But if you hold it gently, you can enjoy it without fear of losing it. The same applies to life. When we stop clinging, we stop suffering. The end of suffering is called nirvana, a state of peace and freedom. It's not a place, but a state of mind. A realization that we are already whole, already complete. Nirvana is not about escaping the world or its problems. It's about transforming how we relate to them. It's about seeing things as they are, without the filters of desire, fear, or attachment. In this state, we experience true freedom. We are not controlled by our cravings, our fears, or our past. We can face life's challenges with calmness and clarity. We stop chasing happiness because we realize that it's not something to be chased. It's something to be experienced in the present moment. This is the end of suffering, the freedom to live fully and authentically without being driven by the endless cycle of desire. The fourth noble truth, the truth of the path to the end of suffering, Magga. So, how do we get there? How do we move from suffering to peace, from craving to contentment? The Buddha didn't just tell us that suffering can end. He showed us the way. This path is called the Noble Eightfold Path, a set of principles to guide our thoughts, actions, and attitudes in the right direction. It's a path of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. The Eightfold Path is made up of 8 steps, and while it may seem like a lot to follow, it's really about living with awareness and intention. These steps are right understanding, understanding life as it truly is, including the nature of suffering and its causes. Right intention, cultivating the right mindset, focusing on kindness, compassion, and renunciation of harmful desires. Right speech, speaking truthfully and kindly, avoiding gossip, lies, and harmful language. Right action, acting ethically, with integrity, and avoiding harm to others. Right livelihood, earning a living in a way that does not cause harm to others or exploit them. Right effort, making the effort to cultivate good qualities and abandon harmful ones. Right mindfulness, practicing awareness and presence in every moment, observing our thoughts and feelings without attachment. Right concentration, developing deep concentration and meditation to cultivate mental clarity and insight. The Noble Eightfold Path isn't a one-time fix or a goal to achieve. It's a way of living, moment by moment. As we practice these principles, we move closer to the end of suffering and the realization of our true nature. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Step by step, we can transform our minds and hearts, creating a life of peace, freedom, and joy. So, the Four Noble Truths show us that suffering is not some inevitable fate, but something we can understand and transcend. By recognizing suffering, understanding its cause, realizing that it can end, and following the path that leads us there, we can find true peace. This isn't just an abstract idea. It's a path that anyone can walk, starting right here, right now. If we truly want to end suffering, we don't need to search for a magic solution or try to escape life's challenges. We simply need to understand them, let go of what we cling to, and walk the path with awareness. And in doing so, we can experience the freedom that comes from living without the weight of desire and attachment. This is the promise of the Buddha's teachings, the promise of peace and liberation, available to us all. The journey of self-discovery. Who are you without labels? Who are you? Have you ever truly asked yourself that question? We live our lives surrounded by labels: daughter, son, teacher, student, friend, worker, and so many others. We identify with these labels, believing they define who we are. But what if they don't? What if you are not defined by the roles you play, but by something deeper? Imagine, for a moment, that all the labels you carry are wiped away. You're not a mother, father, employee, or any of the other titles you wear. Who are you then? It's a strange feeling, isn't it? To think of yourself without these identities. We've become so accustomed to seeing ourselves through the lens of these roles that we forget there is a you that exists beyond them. In Buddhism, this idea is central to understanding the nature of the self. The Buddha taught that our true nature is not defined by labels, roles, or identities. In fact, he called the belief in a permanent, fixed self an illusion. He said, what we call I is simply a collection of thoughts, feelings, and experiences that change from moment to moment. The idea that we are constantly changing can be unsettling at first. We like to think we are consistent, stable beings with a permanent identity. But in reality, everything about us is fluid. Our thoughts, emotions, and even our bodies are in a constant state of flux. One moment, you might feel joy, and the next, sadness. One day, you might feel energetic, and another day, tired. Even our bodies, which seem so permanent, are changing all the time. Cells die and regenerate, and we age without realizing it. This constant change is natural. It's life itself. Yet, we cling to the idea that we are something fixed, something permanent. We attach ourselves to identities, thinking that by holding on to these labels, We can define who we are and find security in that. But Buddhism teaches us to let go of these attachments, because they are the very things that cause suffering. So, who are you without these labels? The answer is simple yet profound. You are pure awareness. You are the witness to your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. You are not the thoughts themselves, nor are you the roles you play. You are the awareness that observes it all. To understand this, imagine a calm, clear sky. Your thoughts are like clouds that come and go. Sometimes the sky is filled with dark, stormy clouds, and other times it's bright and sunny. But the sky itself never changes. It is always there, regardless of the clouds. You, too, are like the sky, constant and unchanging at your core. When you stop identifying with your thoughts and labels, you start to see yourself more clearly. You realize that you are not defined by your past mistakes, your achievements, or even the expectations others have of you. You are not bound by your job title or your family role. You are free from all of that. It's easy to get lost in the roles we play, especially when society tells us that these roles are who we are. But Buddhism teaches that true freedom comes when we let go of these labels. By recognizing that we are not our thoughts, our emotions, or our roles, we open ourselves to the infinite possibilities of who we can become. Now, you might be wondering, how do I begin to experience this freedom? The first step is to become aware. Notice when you start to identify with a role or label. For example, when you feel frustrated at work, ask yourself, am I the frustration, or am I just experiencing frustration? The more you practice, the easier it becomes to detach from these labels. Another way to let go of labels is through mindfulness meditation. By sitting quietly and observing your thoughts without judgment, you can begin to see how transient and impermanent they are. As you watch your thoughts come and go, you realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of them. This awareness is liberating. When you no longer tie your happiness to being a certain type of person or achieving a specific role, you can finally experience life as it is, without expectations, without limitations. You are free to simply be. But there's another layer to this self-discovery. When you let go of all the labels, you also let go of the need for external validation. So often, we seek approval from others to feel good about ourselves. We want to be seen as successful, smart, attractive, or kind. But when you recognize that your worth doesn't depend on these labels, you stop seeking approval from the outside world. You realize that your value comes from within, from the simple fact that you exist. In Buddhism, this idea is captured in the concept of emptiness, not in the sense of being empty or hollow, but in the sense of being open and free from attachment. When we let go of our attachment to roles, labels, and external validation, we become open to the vast potential within us. We are no longer limited by the constraints we've placed on ourselves. The journey of self-discovery is ongoing. It's not something you achieve in a single moment, but something you experience every day. As you continue to let go of the labels that have defined you, you'll find yourself becoming more authentic, more connected to your true nature. And in this authenticity, you'll discover a deeper sense of peace and happiness than any role or title could ever bring. So, who are you without your labels? You are more than you can imagine.